If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the lack of a curriculum or the burden of expensive, time-consuming professional development, this episode is for you. Today I'm chatting with Kris Brown, and we're going to be discussing how platforms like Kris's Sound Thinking Interactive are setting the new standard for music teacher support by making high-quality resources and professional growth both affordable and accessible.
It's the Happy Music Teacher!
Are you an elementary music teacher who's frustrated and overwhelmed? I'm Jeanette, a happy music teacher who loves teaching every day, but it wasn't long ago I was in your shoes. Join me Wednesdays to help you find happy in your music classroom. Today on the podcast, I am welcoming Kris Brown, who is the partnership representative for Sound Thinking Interactive. And I am really excited to have him on because he has so much to offer. He and I met at TMEA. We thought it would be fun to get on and just chat about what Kris can offer to elementary music teachers.
Well, thank you, Jeanette. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. So why don't you start out telling us just a little bit about you and what you do and kind of your why in working with music teachers?
Great. So I'll get right into it. Let's see. I taught elementary music for the past 12 to 13 years in the state of Texas. I am a native Texan, born and raised, grew up in the Pflugerville, Austin area. My dad, he grew up wanting to be a music teacher, but then he pushed himself into a direction, and then he became his own boss and started doing Paul Brown piano tuning and repair.
Awesome.
And that got me into a love of music growing up. I was a low brass player throughout my life, did marching band as a tuba player. And when I got to college, that is the real first interaction I had of like what an elementary music classroom will look like. And that's when I got to go observe elementary classrooms in that one, typically for music education students, it's always that one class of elementary music. And that's when I fell in love with it because everything is set up to be secondary just from the get-go.
Right.
So many different classes. And I knew that I wanted to work with little children because they're a lot of fun. It's joyful singing and dancing. And particularly for me, growing up in a house of 8 boys,
Oh my gosh, 8 boys. That's insane. I have 2 and I can't even imagine what 8 would be like.
It's like, 6 to 7 gallons of milk a week. Getting interesting with coupons and stuff. And my parents, my dad owning his own business, but it was very much like mom and pop-esque, living kind of month to month. And my mom was blue collar. She drove buses for school districts and eventually became a route rider. So it was always like coupon frenzy and then working with scholarships and just trying to make sure everybody was fed. Now, what's really great is that none of us went to jail and all of us have jobs and are married and have kids. So we worked out pretty well. And we all range
So
from
your parents checked all the boxes. They did their job well.
Yes, and they relied heavily on, the importance that what is public education. Like without public education, like we'd all be a lot worse off. So
Yes.
when I got into elementary music, I fell in love with it, but much like many other elementary music teachers, I felt extremely lost. I didn't know what I was doing because there's nothing there. And, if you try to go back to your own elementary experience mine was in the 90s, it was a lot of like song and dance in a can. It was, our theme is it's going to be Earth Day. So we plan, for 4 months of music, just singing the same 5 to 6 songs, get ready for Earth Day. Or as, a lot of educators deal with, like they're prepping for Christmas in October because maybe they see the kids, only 11 times before that Christmas holiday performance. So that's how I got into Kodály and ORF certifications.
Hmm.
And I got my Kodály certification in 2013. I did 3 levels starting in 2010. And I did it with Dr. Taka and Dr. Houlihan. And it was
Hmm.
really intensive.
Yeah, I've
And
heard that about Kodály. I have not done Kodály certification, but I have heard it is very intense.
it's very intense. The bravery it takes every educator to be in those programs to get up there in front of other college educated adults and be prepared to look like an idiot sometimes.
Hmm.
Because, solfege will just leave your brain at that exact moment when you're asked to sing like bow wow wow and you're like
Right.
"Bah," like
Yeah.
so these programs kind of live and die via grants. They're
Mhm.
not commercially feasible. So that's why we don't see them springing everywhere because you really have to have district backing and like kind of a force that's going to like you're going to have a dedicated group of teachers actually attending these things.
Right, right.
So that is kind of where sound thinking started to get born because we were chugging along, chugging along. I started really becoming a teacher relied on by the university to host student teachers and block students. I had a lot of student teachers that are like, okay, Kris does really well with them. We want him to start like clinicking other student teachers and giving
Mhm.
feedback. And then I started the circuit of being like not a Kodály trainer, but Kodály inspired stuff to get people in.
Hmm.
Um, because I always like to call it the Kodály PR problem. Because you look at ORF, those are fun people that smile. And then you look at like a Kodály meeting, they don't smile. And there are joyful people in Kodály groups. Like they're amazing teachers. But there's something that happens when they go to a Kodály certification program that they come back that can be rather off-putting to teachers that have never attended, or
Mm.
teachers are like, oh, I would love to be that dedicated to the craft, but if I have younger kids, if I'm like, already in my 40s or 50s, I cannot approach this like an all-nighter like a college student again, which these
Right.
programs kind of ask for. And some people are very intense as trainers and teachers of this, that other people, especially in this day and age, they're like, I'm not going to put up with nonsense from a person if they're going to make me feel demeaned in any way. Like, I
Yeah.
pay taxes, and if I'm not going to accept that treatment for my students, I'm definitely not going to accept that treatment from professors when I am past the college age.
Right.
So my Kodály inspired stuff would be at like TMEA. So I did my first ever presentation at TMEA was body warm-ups for the Kodály inspired classroom. And it was essentially, if you look at like the fire ribbon thing of like move its and stuff, it's
Hmm.
those, but it was movements with a purpose of not just getting the kids engaged, but it's going to be tied to a specific rhythmic or melodic concept. So you're
Hmm.
hearing the form, phrase, and beat and rhythm patterns in a song, but also if we can connect a very specific, we've been working on law pentatonic, you're going to hear that entire scale happen in different songs, whether it's like a classic Westerns music song or something like from a video game project. And so I started building up a following on YouTube, did my first presentation on that in February of 2020,
Hmm.
and then COVID happened. Uh,
Yes.
and that was a scary time for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, and I was getting into, be restorative behavioral management, like how do you deal with grumpy kids or kids with trauma that are not going to listen, and you know, their fight or flight at home ends with, someone getting hit, which is not a thing you can do at school. And so there's
No.
when they're at school, they're always upping the ante because they're
Hmm.
expecting like what's the end crisis? A parent is going to physically harm them. And a teacher doesn't do that. So if you just agitate those kids enough, you're going to send them on a spiral that you can't get out of
Hmm.
because the next step for them is violence. Like that's what ends it, unfortunately. But that's a whole other topic I can get into. Um, So our our school district at that time said, okay, you're all online and you have to do lessons. So we're expecting you to record 45-minute lesson videos for every class.
Whoa,
Right. That is insane.
that is
Eh,
insane.
right. So we're a Kodály emphasis district though, and we didn't have a fine arts director at the time. And because we had a unified curriculum that we based on Kodály concepts, I, through the blunt force of my personality, I kind of forced my teammates. I said, look, we're not, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This isn't
Mhm.
going to work.
Right.
45 minutes of us doing this isn't happening. But what we can do is, because we're all following this as lesson type, everyone is going to have a specific task to add to our lessons. So, for example, this week, Christopher is in charge of all of the warm-up videos. He's going to make a warm-up video. We're all going to use that. And then, like, Beth, she is in charge of the known songs we're going to sing. And then we'll have, like, Wilson. He's going to be in charge of preparing the new concept, whether we're asking questions. And so now everyone has, like, 10 to 15 minutes of each grade level. That adds up, to about an hour of work. We had Excel sheets, we were figuring this out, and that's what kept us sane
Yeah.
for, the time right after COVID and then up until uh Christmas of 2021, of 2020. No, yeah, Christmas of 2020. So now we get to Christmas of 2020, and um, the federal government, state government, we have a new president with Joseph Biden, and our school district is kind of succumbed to the, especially in the state of Texas, everybody's on their own. We have to get kids back in the classroom, so we're going to put teachers back. And I
Mm.
said, my doctor has said, because there's no vaccine yet, if I get COVID, I'm going to die because of like
Oh, wow.
yeah, because of my asthma. And then I also had two very high risk parents at the times. Like my mother was in memory care,
Mm.
and my father had just recently passed of a COVID induced heart attack,
Oh, no.
like right at the same time. So after getting my mom set up in a memory care place, my district was like, look, we feel for you. We know you have a doctor's note. And we know that if you go back in the classroom, the memory care place has said you're not going to see your mom anymore. But
Right.
this is a loss that we're willing to take.
Okay.
And I would, what does that mean? And they're like, well, we understand the risk it's putting you in, but we're willing to take that risk. So I was like,
No.
well, I guess we're done. I chose, my mom over my school district,
Yeah.
and I took out my teacher retirement savings and I started Sound Thinking Interactive because one of the biggest feedbacks I've noticed with um, teachers when they go to conference stuff is they really dislike when people come to present at things that are no longer in the classroom.
Mm.
And they're like, well, you're out of it. So why should we listen to you? Because you're not actually in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I have a lot of insight and experience to give, and I want to provide something because these lessons that I built with my um, team at my district were kind of like the basis of what sound thinking would become. Of like, we don't want to do all the work of a teacher, but we want to set up people for success that they can understand ORF and Kodai principles and have it be approachable and something that they could easily digest without having to try and read, the Kodai Bibles and then go, okay, based on what I think I understand, now I'm going to go make these lessons. Because I
Mm-hmm.
always tell people there's a difference between reading the book and then actually experiencing what the teaching strategy should like in person when you go to like a certification course.
Right.
So I started making worksheets and I started making warm-up videos and lessons. And Dr. Taka and Dr. Houlihan took notice of that. And they're like, we like what you're doing. How about you take what our pedagogy and we'll form a partnership and you can develop the online lessons and stuff online for teachers to access for a subscription. And so the goal of Sound Thinking Interactive was taking those pedagogical practices and making it so like a teacher could have a slide deck with each focus of the lesson from all the way from body warm-ups to the end activity, whether it's reading, writing, improvisation, or listening activity. And it is just streamlining. Here's your warm-up. Here's an example. You can make your own if you want, but here we've got it for you so you can do it with the kids. Here's the known song lists. We partner with Beth Notes. You don't know the song? Great. You click this one icon, it takes you to the notation. And we did that for all of the reading, all for the rhythmic and melodic concepts that are introduced in the Kodály today and like the elementary classroom books.
Very cool.
Yeah, because like anytime I see an online music curriculum, my first thought is it replacing what the music teacher is supposed to be doing? Meaning,
Right.
are the kids just sitting down and pressing, and the teacher's pressing a button, and now they're off watching something? Or worse, is every kid now just interacting with an iPad and not
Right.
actually making music? And one of the most horrifying things for me, and I'm a talker and I'll rant, so at any point you need to stop me and ask a question. Go for it. The most horrifying for me is when I get asked to go out and do trainings. And I'm like, okay, teachers, we're going to get up and play a game. They didn't want to play games. They didn't want to sing. They're like, okay, but where can I find this on like such and such program? And like, it'll just do it for me. And I was like, that's terrifying because you're now one step closer to an aide just taking your job.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we're seeing that in Texas right now, where like Socorro ISD just fired 300 art and music teachers.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So the goal was to make something that could act as professional development for a teacher in the classroom, give them everything. Is like, this is how you're going to do the lesson, but you're singing, you're playing the games. And I think one of the greatest feedbacks I always get that I always chuckle at is when a teacher goes, hey, where's the audio for this? Where's the person singing? And I'll go,
Or the audio,
you're it. You're gonna get up there.
right?
Like, could a sub do our lessons? I think so, if they planned ahead.
Right.
But the goal is like, and I tell music teachers all this, don't dumb down your lesson plans because an admin needs to see, oh my God, what they're doing is difficult. This is like they're not replaceable.
Right. Right.
As
Well, and that's a big deal, because we don't want the admin to walk into the classroom and, any old person can do what we're doing. We want it because we're professionals and we have a curriculum and we have vast knowledge of what we're doing. So we don't want just anybody to be able to come in and do it. So Kris, tell me, when I am like I'm a brand new teacher to you, and how does the process work? You said something about a subscription. So is it a monthly? Is it a yearly? What do I get with it? How does that work?
Great question. So first of all, for your listeners, we're gonna give them like a 50% discount that they can sign up
Woo!
listening and wherever you want to put a
Thank you.
code. Yeah. So that for new teachers, my first thing is always survive. Your first year,
Yeah.
you're going in, learn the culture of your school and adapt to it first. You can pick and choose things to fix, but that's what you want to do. So we provide monthly, 6-month, and yearly subscriptions. And our yearly subscription is less than $1 a day for the entire year.
Nice.
So our goal is always to be cost effective and affordable for a teacher because a lot of curriculums they rely on a school district using federal funding and these large bonds of millions of dollars of like 4 to 5 year contracts.
Right.
And, when you see drastic budget cuts, there are some teachers that are like, I get nothing. I have a zero, not even money to like get notation.
Mm-hmm.
So our monthly is $32 a month, but there's no add-ons of like, and by the way, if you want another subscription to get the professional development, you have to pay more. It's all
Nice.
inclusive. And we were approved by TEA that, teachers, if they're teaching our lessons, they can turn in evidence of like the worksheets and student work or video of their teaching. We'll review it, we'll comment, give feedback, and then they get an hour of credit for that lesson. So
Nice.
professional development while you're teaching, and then you don't have to go to weekend stuff that may be hit or miss, especially when you're like, I just want to sit down and have a mojito to get over what, this fifth grade
To
girl just,
recover from my week.
yeah, this fifth grade girl just dressed you down hard like you're on RuPaul's Drag Race, and you're like, I need to recover from that, you know? So easy enough subscriptions that we try to make it as affordable for teachers as possible. Um, and what I would say first is for a teacher is get with your school district and go, do they have a curriculum first and foremost? And then look at ways you can have sound thinking um, entered into your classroom. And what I really tell people is that the best way to do it is to start in kindergarten and first grade and
Mm-hmm.
just teach directly from our units. Because if you do that, you will see the significant change when they get to second and third grade, when their personalities start to form and they're really starting to sing in 2 to 3 parts.
Right.
Because our curriculum units are not based on like a theme of like, here's our jazz unit or here's our percussion unit. It is, here's the quarter note and 2/8 notes unit. And during that unit, you are doing all of the preparatory activities of singing and movement to it, oral awareness. You are going to create a picture of it, and then we get into the associative phasing of labeling it with just words like, this is a quarter note and it has ta and toddy or ta tt, depending on, which faction you believe in for
Mm-hmm.
rhythm syllables. And then into reading, writing, improvisation when you go into the next unit. So in that quarter note and eighth note unit, you are practicing, your kindergarten concepts of like melody and going high and low melodic contour. You're reviewing all those concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past quarter note, you're doing so and me, and you're doing the improvisation of quarter note and eighth note. So that way, we've built this music literacy curriculum that
Mm-hmm.
now they can interject their school community's culture and all of the themes and variations they're wanting to do that fit inside their classroom. Like I always tell people, a San Antonio elementary is going to have a different culture and different regional song choices than a Houston ISD school. And it's
Right.
very like the big brand, I mean, we could almost call them like big pharma or big tech, but like the big curriculums, they whitewash and dilute everything so much so that they can try and get everybody that
Mm-hmm.
really unique things are missed. Like Hayes CASD in Hayes County has a vibrant mariachi program. You would want to see your elementary teachers coordinating with those teachers of the
Yes.
mariachi programs and have that regional culture amplified so that those kids are excited about what programs await them at the high school. San
Mm-hmm.
Marcos has a lovely orchestral focus that you want to get those kids excited and demonstrating like the different orchestral programs that are available for them when they get those school years. And with
Right.
larger curriculums, if you're doing it just based on different themes and stuff, they're going to miss out on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then it just
So,
goes,
so it is
go
a
ahead.
full curriculum with units, with a plan, because last year I developed a course for music teachers and it was all about teaching with ease. And I interviewed 10, 15 music teachers that were part of my audience and was like, what's your biggest struggle? And the number one thing I heard was, I don't have a curriculum. I don't have something to follow. Whereas, the classroom teachers, they almost have too much to follow in my mind. You know, there's not really a lot of room for creativity, but for music teachers, our challenge is not having that curriculum. So for somebody like me who I like to have a guide to follow, but I really want to pull in my own stuff as well, this sounds like a good option because it would give me a guideline, but would also give me the ability to like pull in what I wanted to and be creative, because one of my favorite things about teaching is being able to be creative.
Yes. Everybody wants to kind of be the center of attention as a music teacher because we enjoy that kind of audience relationship we have with our students.
Right.
So the goal of Sound Thinking Interactive is to you're inserting your personality with our curriculum. You're putting all your themes and variations in that to where if you're a violin player, you can easily bring your violin and you're using it while teaching your lessons. Same with baritone, tuba, flute. If you're ukulele recorder, you go for it.
I'm glad
Um,
you said that because I was going to ask, because recorder and ukulele are such a big deal. How do I get those into your curriculum? Like, how does that work?
Pretty easily because as a teacher, they can just supplement in their own recorder stuff. But coming this next year, we're adding standalone ukulele and recorder courses of like, when those fifth and fourth graders get older, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, okay, I have to keep it interesting. We're
Right.
creating curriculum that's just focused on ready to go recorder implemented with those classes. So that's
Mhm.
coming. We're also just, a small company that there's only so much we can develop every month.
I feel
Um,
that.
that we're getting there. So the one of the fascinating things that you hit on was music teachers go, I don't have a curriculum. And there is a glaring reason for that. I poured some of my retirement into research, and in that research of polling teachers in Texas and then looking at kind of like all the available offerings in Texas alone, 80% of out of like newly graduated teachers that go into elementary said college didn't prepare them to teach elementary. They
No.
maybe did one binder and it has a grouping of songs, but beyond that, there's no curriculum. It's just kind of like, well, pick and choose from this, pick and choose from that, you'll figure it out.
Mhm.
So that's a problem of itself, which is why Sound Thinking is trying to be a stopgap of we're not a Kodály or certificate program, but we're going to get you interested enough in those, or at least feel confident that you'll go and, oh my God, you already know a lot of how this works just because you did it through us.
Right.
The other fascinating thing we found out is that over 60% of teachers in elementary music right now, over 60% in Texas, do not have a music educator certificate or degree.
Wow.
They have some type of teaching certificate. They have a college degree in education,
Mm-hmm.
but they are not music educators. It might be the kindergarten teacher who really loves theater and knows how to play piano,
Mm-hmm.
and she takes the music position. There are so many stories like that. So
Yeah.
that is why a lot of these big curriculums, they're so to the lowest common denominator of like what a music teacher is at the base point, which is here is a music appreciation class and not a music experience and understanding class.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and the goal is you want to get those teachers to go, hey, you're clearly an intelligent person. You're working with kids. You have the knack. You want to get them to Kodály or Dalcro certifications. But then we go back to the problem of they're college educated and they don't want to look stupid in front of other college educated people. And if like you come into a Kodály program not knowing solfege, having limited knowledge of like being able to sight read staff notation, you're going to have a really bad time.
Yeah. Yeah. For
And
sure.
and so we've noticed like and I'll rat out our company right out from the beginning. Our biggest user base is not Kodály teachers. Our biggest user base is never Kodály and ORF teachers
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
we don't approach it as like this is the Kodály interactive program. It's just a literacy program. And so I've had people go, I love what you do. I can't stand Kodály, but what y'all provide is great. And I just kind of have to go, like you're doing
The
it.
same thing.
You do it. You just and that's why I said it has a PR problem because
Yeah.
people look at it and like the biggest feedback I have is I think Kodai's cool, but it's too boring. And it's because they either tried it themselves and they just couldn't grasp like the lesson standard and it's difficult and it takes a lot of prep work, or
Mhm.
they watch somebody who's bad at it or like doesn't have the like a what I call a marketable personality. Like there are those people that are just like, oh, you're intense and you don't make me feel good about myself talking to you.
Mm.
Um, and that's something that can be difficult to we're trying to be that cheerleader in that space to
Yeah,
not
which is
be
it's really needed because as a traditional ORF person, I will say to you that I never thought Kodai was boring, but it didn't interest me in the same way that ORF did. Although it is very play-based and I am a singer by trade, that's my thing, but it never like drew me the way that ORF did. But I will say it I would have been your perfect customer back when I first started because I came the same route you're talking about. I was a college educated person. I did not have an education degree. I was in the process of doing my work to
Mhm.
be an educator. But I came into the classroom and did not have the experience of even having had an observation in a classroom, let alone a student teacher experience. So, but you and I are very similar in that, at least I think that I went and found the knowledge. Because if I was going to do something, it wasn't going to be pressing a button. It was going to be, I was going to do it to the best of my ability. So, I learned as much as I could, and I went to every workshop and every training and every conference, and did my ORF level one, which totally saved my life. And then
Oh
later
yeah.
went back, but I'm still learning. I listen to a podcast every morning to learn and grow as both an educator and now as a business owner. So, but there's a lot
Yes.
of people out there that are not going to do that. So you put a person, and you're right, if they go into a situation, it was uncomfortable for me when I went into my first ORF training because I did not know at all what I was doing because I hadn't done it, but so it's uncomfortable, but I'm a person who I'm going to jump in with both feet and I'm going to make myself uncomfortable so that I can learn more. But a lot of people aren't like that.
For sure. Yes. And um when I talk to my business partners about stuff like this, about why people don't adopt certain things, I always try to go to the why of it.
Mm-hmm.
The why aren't they doing these things? And the goal is always we want like our audience is not the master teachers because they've got it. We
Right.
want to uplift more teachers. And so um I always kind of ask the why, and especially in this day and age, like if I'm an exhausted teacher, I think my job's on the line and I'm terrified, even of like there are people in Texas that, felt comfortable enough to come out and say, hey, like I have a what would call non-traditional lifestyle. I'm married in a loving relationship, and now they're afraid for their safety. Like the
Mhm.
last thing they're gonna want to do is go to a training. It's the
Yeah.
same with our students. If their needs of like being fed and safety and emotional support aren't there, the last thing they're going to want to do is, sing a song about bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same with our teachers. And so our product was really that, like, listen, we can try and advocate on the lobbyist level for better teacher protections, but our product is and always will be something that's kind of like a lifeline of like, look, here's something that you can use that also will help you with job security.
Right.
Um, because, I am the same way. Like I always want to keep learning, But if I have to choose between, if I'm going to go to an advocacy group night of like, to help protect my friends that are like being accosted by ICE or like another Kodály training, I'm going to go to the one that like directly affects my nearby community.
Right.
And a lot of people are having to make those decisions right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen decreases in like attendance to, in-person trainings because there's just that sheer exhaustion that people are feeling of just
Yeah.
every day is like, how am I gonna get to 4 o'clock?
Well, because you've got the stress not only of the classroom, but the climate that's going on and things that are happening in people's personal lives, etc. So, Kris, if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way? Because this seems like a really good option for, I think, even for master teachers, because, even for a teacher who really knows what they're doing, to have a set curriculum that you can have all of your resources and pull things into seems like a great option. And to learn, I think that Kodály and Orff marry very well together if
They,
you do it in the right
yes.
way. So how can people get in touch with you?
So they can easily find us online because we're completely web browser based. They don't have to buy anything else for the classroom at soundthinkinginteractive.com. If they want to hit me
Soundthinkinginteractive.com.
directly, yep, soundthinkinginteractive.com. I am easily able to be found at our sales email because it goes directly to me. Sales at soundthinkinginteractive.com. It's a mouthful every time I remember that.
I know, right?
But and then we have, surveys and different just referral things of they can just ask a question and we'll pretty much get in touch with them in 24 hours or less.
Awesome.
But yeah, and then they're always free to come by and say hi at conventions.
Mhm.
And just a little plug here, we recently did Unmute the Grumps with two really awesome teachers where they just did a clinic at TMEA all about how to get fifth graders that are kind of grumpy to participate. And
I
we
missed
sponsored it.
that session because I think I wasn't in town yet. I was wanting to go.
Oh, it was a packed crowd. It
I
was
bet.
one of the top three attended things. It was really great. And when we sponsor clinician, we're not asking them to like show our curriculum. We're just asking them to do good teaching and say that we sponsored them. So if there are teachers listening to your podcast and they go to their state conventions, they should reach out to us because we love to sponsor good quality teaching because that's the way we're going to get more and more teachers out there.
Right, right. Now you mentioned a 50% off. How do we do that?
So,
I'm all about the deal.
the great what we can do is it can just, at the end of this episode or in the middle, wherever you want to put it, we'll have just you can just have here's the discount code. Thanks for listening. And they just have to put that when they're signing up their subscription, they just put the coupon code in and it'll be good to go. Happy Teacher 25 and they're
Yeah,
in.
that works. We can do that. So you'll enter Happy Teacher 25 when you order and you'll get 50% off, which is amazing. Thank you for that. Well, Kris, I
Welcome.
so appreciate you coming on. We could have talked for like another hour because we had a lot to say to each other.
Oh, yes. Yes.